Good morning, friends. Yesterday, our family went for a hike, and the woods were filled with all kinds of creatures. And I'm talking about trees and things like that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember a chipmunk. There were mushrooms.
Lots of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And when we're out in nature, I feel like all those creatures are perfect in themselves. Yeah?
Well, I do think that we just accept nature as it is. It's a good thing for us to do. We can't really control the weather, and I think we see the beauty of things when we go out in nature as they are. I don't walk on the trail and think, oh, that tree doesn't look good like that. I wish they would have shaped it differently, you know, or, just that kind of concept of, oh, those mushrooms are growing in the wrong spot. It's just, everything is beautiful and you just feel nestled
Yeah.
like you're a part of it, kind of.
And I feel like even the trees, for instance, that stand out to us, that we remember most, are ones that are oddly shaped, or
Oh, yeah.
curved, or even sometimes broken down. The one that we sat on for lunch,
Yeah.
where if we had a different view, a more conventional utilitarian view, and we were looking at the trees just for how good their lumber would be, then we would be looking at the trees, and the curvy ones would not be uh, the the good ones.
Right.
Not the straight, tall, perfect trees.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect is so subjective. I remember the tree that we were sitting on. Mirabelle looked at it and she said, "Wow, can you believe that this is just out here? That just nature made it?" She said, "Imagine if a human being had, constructed this out of, whatever, clay or other things down to the most minute detail of the little moss and the, broken branches and the etchings of the bugs and things. It's like it would be, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. It would be
It's
unbelievable
amazing,
that somebody
amazing work of art.
could have even done that. And it's just out here, everywhere. And I thought that was really a cool kind of way to look at things.
Yeah, I think that's kind of pervasive in our world. It's something that makes, this might be a day to talk a little bit about how radical a spiritual path can be. Because there often is a message that we humans are valuable because of what we produce. And you were saying it's different when we're little babies.
Well, if you think about it, I, I mean, in general, hopefully this is the case. When you're born, I think about it from my own perspective as a mom. You have this baby that comes into the world and they really can't do anything. I mean, useful, right? They cry, they need you, everything, they're
Yeah.
completely dependent. And yet they're so precious. They're so valuable. There's no need for them to do anything in order to be the most meaningful, you know, entity part of this world.
But they
And
may be doing stuff that's counter to useful in the sense of,
right. Like they take up your time. You can't do the same things anymore. Maybe they're crying. You don't know what's wrong. And you could almost see those things as negatives. And yet
oh my gosh.
they're still just so valuable. They're still like that tree that's bent or crooked, or the mushrooms that aren't in quote the right place. They're just themselves. They are the thing that they are, and that's all that they have to be in order to just be so magical.
Yeah. And then there becomes, over the years, a shift into a, a system that rewards us
Mm.
for our accomplishments. and sometimes punishes us for lack
Okay.
of
Or
accomplishments
failures. Yeah.
until we become adults. And often that has become so ingrained that now that becomes a truth of the world.
Mm.
That the people around me, maybe even the animals and plants
Mm.
around me, are valuable only in what they give to me or to society in their
Hmm.
utility.
Wow. Okay, I experienced this firsthand. Still a recovering perfectionist, and the message that you can get and give yourself, this is important too,
Yes.
is that you are not enough just how you are, and that your value is based on what you accomplish, what you contribute to society, what you get done, um, even just like how you think and the emotions you have. You know, we in our culture don't allow ourselves to have negative emotions because, quote, they're negative, um, instead of just seeing them as part of the whole emotional landscape. And so I know that I've experienced times where I am trying to prove my value, constantly trying to prove my value. And it's interesting because even lately, I'll wake up sometimes. It's a beautiful, perfect morning. It's peaceful. I might have a free day in front of me where I get to just choose what I'm going to do. I don't necessarily have any specifics. So that doing is kind of taken out of the picture or expectation from others. And yet I will still have this underlying subtle anxiety. Oh my gosh, what if I'm not enough? What if I can't meet what the day brings me in the right way? Because obviously we're going to meet what the day brings us because here we are. But there's this sense of like it should be done right. There's a right, there's a wrong. And who I am and how valuable I am is completely dependent upon how I do.
Yeah. When a a spiritual message comes in to dare challenge this happens with a lot of spiritual messages. Often the first thing we can do then is think the spiritual message has to be incorrect
Mm.
or it's radical, it's dangerous because we've bought in so much into this idea that value comes from utility.
Oh, sneeze.
We're both a little sniffly,
Okay,
are we?
just a little bit of allergies. Okay, it's not happening. Yes, we have bought into the idea.
Yeah. And then we become, you talked about it becoming something we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
We become convinced that if we would dare to even entertain these thoughts, that the people around us, at least, if not ourselves, would cease to do anything. If you were told you were valuable just for being you, just for sitting and breathing, well, that's just an excuse to sit around and do nothing, right?
Which I would argue is probably the best thing that most of us could do. We might have a completely different world if everybody sat around and did nothing. And then from that would stem perhaps natural activity that would come from a place of true and genuine desire and not from the sense of expectation. Anyway, sorry. I just had to jump in there and say, actually, what would be wrong if everybody did nothing? But I think what you're getting at is that are you the kind of person who's just going to do nothing forever? You know, I think people should make friends with doing nothing. Doing nothing is often what we call boredom, and boredom is a great
That's funny.
place.
Yes, we need more of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place for creativity to flow. It's a great place to connect more deeply with nature and with ourselves. It's a moment of stillness. And in stillness, we experience the divine. And if you look at a lot of our lives in our culture, it's busy all the time, packed with everything. And some of that is just because we're human beings. We're like ants scurrying to and fro and doing all these things. And that's what humans do. But on the flip side, a lot of us are addicted to that, of filling our time jam-packed, so full that we actually can't finish or do all of the things. And sometimes I think that's an escape mechanism. So we don't have to sit with the stillness in the doing nothing and realize, wow, you know what? I'm actually okay. I'm wonderful. I'm just the same as nature. And, there's a vulnerability in that. But
Stillness, yes. I love what you brought up there in that sense of that's one of the toughest things for people. So to worry that people would all start being still, what they're going to do is start just playing video games constantly, drinking beer.
Okay.
And
But you know what?
that is not, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, no. I mean, okay, let's follow that thought. The thought is there are bad things to do, right? Like, if I just sat around and I drank beer and I played video games and that's all I did, look it, I am not contributing to society. I am not valuable. I am a worthless human being, if you want to put it that way. That's like what my perfectionist mind would be. Oh, I'm so worthless. All I'm doing is laying on a hammock and reading a book, like. It's so interesting, isn't it? That we so much judge ourselves and other people on value, and the value is always the doing. And I get what you're saying. Civilization is probably not going to fall apart if people take some time for stillness and if people do nothing. And if everybody sat around and drank beer and played video games, I guess we have to ask ourselves, would civilization fall apart or would it just change? Would a lot of people just be really happy and have fun playing video games and drinking beer? I mean, all the people who make beer and video games would be really happy.
So those people would have utility for those people that are selling those things.
But I guess my bigger, stepping back takeaway is that when we have a divine connection or a spiritual path with Divine Mother, we are that infant all the time. It doesn't matter if we're drinking beer and playing video games. It doesn't matter if to her, we're the tree that's growing in an unusual and intriguing way. And our value is just innate. We are innately valuable. Not for any reason, just innately valuable as a member of creation. And there's something powerful about scaling back all the human expectations, right? Because we can be like, oh, well, what if you've murdered someone? Or what if you cheated on your husband? Or, like all these things that are bad and horrible. We can just take off that layer for a second of human judgment and just step back and say for a moment, put yourself as a tree, as a unique and curvy tree. Because it has to start inside ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
With ourself saying, I am enough. I am valuable. And you know what? I'm not perfect. And I'm still enough. And imagine what would stem from there if you actually felt that way. You would also then perhaps begin to reach out and see the tree is enough. It is not perfect. Hey, my child, they are not perfect. My spouse, my boss. If you just started seeing people as creation or nature or, what would happen?
I think it's really important that we get that radical in our thought because there's a safety net here. The safety net is that, of course, when we do nothing, when we take on this from a spirit, this idea of intrinsic value from a spiritual perspective, then when we find stillness, that stillness is very ripe and filled with potentiality and often the most spiritual people, I'm thinking of Mother Teresa, out of that stillness and that divine connection comes incredible works of quote usefulness or goodness in the world. But we don't necessarily get to that place when we're giving ourselves that backdrop. So I think really trying to see the value in sitting and playing video games and drinking beer is important. As strange as that sounds.
Is that what we're going to title this one? Playing video games and
Drinking
drinking
beer.
beer.
And when we look, that sometimes can get us to step back and look at this whole system, because we might have somebody who's very productive, who's making millions of dollars and contributing to the nation's gross domestic product, and but when we look at what they're doing might be very harmful. They may be selling cigarettes that are harming a lot of people. And so often these ways of being productive in the world, maybe if we look at them carefully, less um, uh, useful than just sitting and.
I want to scale it down to a domestic
Perfect. That's great. Yeah,
level.
something more relatable.
No, because what you said is really important, actually. On a more eagle vision level. But I want to bring it into, for me, something that I've experienced and maybe is more ordinary, tangible,
Yeah.
which is take the parent who is trying to do everything for their child. And you want to give them this experience and give them that experience. And you're a people pleaser. So you want to make sure that your neighbors like you, your friends like you, your extended family likes you, your strangers you meet like you. And you cultivate a personality that's always saying, you know, whatever you think the other person would like to hear, so that you don't have any rocking of the boat. No one has to be disappointed. And yet, damage is being done internally because you are perhaps going against how you feel, or maybe just you have burned yourself out, but you're still going because there's that expectation. And then if you just disappoint people, they won't like you. And then it even comes down to the fact that in your relationships, perhaps you're not being fully honest. And then when your spouse or a friend or whomever kind of finds out, oh, they didn't do that from a place of, like, they felt put upon, or like that was the choice they had to make in order to make me happy, that's kind of a strange and not nice feeling. So in a way, it's just like that person who's contributing to, making everything like flow financially, whatever. You're making things, relationships flow, and yet you're kind of also maybe starting to do some damage to yourself and to your relationships because they're not from a completely transparent and honest place where you feel like you're enough, even if you say, I'm sorry, kids, but we're not going to go to the county fair this year because, whatever. You're, you're still enough. It doesn't matter. And I think that it's just important for us to look at all the ways in which we judge. We say drinking beer and watching video games. Well, we do both of those things. Did I say watching? Playing. and and are we terrible people? Are we not contributing? And then can we step outside of that conversation entirely? Does it matter if you contribute? Is somebody who is born with a disability or some other, condition where they can't participate in society normally not valuable?
So this, if we adopt this, or start to explore this, I think some things start to happen. And the first thing that happens is that we start to appreciate the world around us more, because we're not looking at everything or everybody and making a judgment of their value. Instead, we can just see them as they are, and that allows more appreciation of the world.
Yeah.
What happens if we turn that onto ourselves? Boy, that definitely changes our way of encountering our relationship with self, doesn't it? because we are out of that. Am I doing the right thing? Am I contributing? We start to open up the door to natural action.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I don't even know if some of us know what that feels like anymore.
No, that's a hidden aspect of being
Yeah.
that is spoken about in some Eastern traditions. We don't even maybe see it as a reality because it's so
Hmm.
foreign. This idea that you will naturally rise to the occasion, you will naturally have positive actions.
Yeah. You know, what this is making me think of a little bit too uh, is hang on, it's there. I just got distracted. Keep talking. It will come back to me.
Okay. When you spoke a while back, you were talking about.
I know.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Um, for a brief moment, what flitted through my mind was, for a brief moment, uh, was when we talk about scarcity in the world and the I am not enough is a whole part of that.
Yeah.
And in an interesting way, when we step back into that stillness and we connect with Divine Mother or the natural world or the idea that I am enough just right now, no matter what I've done, what I am doing, how I feel, I am enough. I am valuable just because I'm here. It it starts to shift that whole scarcity mentality. You know, we often wake up in the morning and we're already, quote, behind in our heads. There's so much we didn't get done yesterday. There's so much to do today. There's never enough time. Maybe there's never enough money. There's never enough whatever. And as we go deep into that core of, I am enough, you know, you are enough just how you are. If you could really feel that, you start to kind of shift that whole idea that there's just not enough. And it's a kind of a freeing feeling. What if you could wake up every day and the first thing you thought was, I'm enough? And secondly, you thought, I, right now, I have enough. There is enough. There will be enough. And no matter what happens, I'm valuable. This is a valuable experience.
That brings us into a sense of presence,
Yeah.
of beingness. And usually when we're present, there is enough,
Yeah.
right? Because there's actually not a whole lot we need in
Oh,
life. Yeah. Oh, you
well,
have more.
no,
Go.
no, it's just, what do we actually want? Like, ask yourself that. What do you actually want? Do you actually want a lot of money? No. You want the things that money gives you. Things that money. I don't know if I said that right. Anyway, but do we actually want to be super famous? What we want is to be seen. So what we really want is that moment where we're connecting. We want connection. We want time to feel and be here in this moment that we're in. Sorry, I was just so
That's
excited suddenly. Like, all we really want is to be right here. So let's just start by being right here.
that's where so many of the methods of our world just don't. You talked about fame, and so we want connection with other people, meaningful,
Yeah.
real connection. But then the message is kind of go after this fame. But when you achieve fame, you actually lose that connection. There are people that adore you, but they don't even know you.
Yeah.
And so, when we go into that stillness, when we shift our attitude, we can be here, we can be present, and then we just see clearly. All these things that felt so reaching and grasping and confusing
Mm-hmm.
take on a clarity.
And I think that's because if you know you are enough and you can actually start to live from that a little bit more, you realize that all the things you're striving for, you're just striving for so that you could feel like you were enough. It's like the saying, you know, the only Zen you find on a mountaintop is the Zen that you bring there. Our value has to start from inside. And we have to know that no matter what happens, like no matter what happens, you are enough. You are valuable. It's okay. And making mistakes is okay. And doing things the right way and being super popular or whatever is okay. But in the end, the kernel is that you are enough no matter what. Because you know what? Someday I'm going to be hopefully 110 and I'm not going to be able to do the things that I do now in the same way. I can't do the things I used to do when I was 10 the same way. And if I only think that my value is based on what I can do, I'm going to be constantly struggling. And, and in a way, that's kind of why I feel as though in our culture, we don't value our elders in the same way. And we don't necessarily value, quote, the outliers, the people who don't, quote, fit in. Because we base everything on what we do, productivity, accomplishment. And so just imagine for a moment, you start with you knowing that you're just precious how you are. Divine Mother loves you just how you are, no matter what. And you know what? She loves everybody and everything that way. And so if she can do that, maybe we can start to do that too. Maybe we can start with loving ourselves just how we are and then go from there. Sometimes if you struggle with that with other people, I think it's a good practice to picture them as a tree or an
Mm.
animal or, a plant or a rock and just think, okay, would I expect that tree, plant, rock, you know, to do XYZ in order for me to think they were valuable? And I'm not talking about, hey, we need to have a conversation. We need to work on our relationship. Obviously, we need to have conversations, but intrinsically at its core, we are the same and we are just valuable how we are.
What a wonderful practice for starting ourselves down this path. Go out into nature, look around yourself at the grasses, at the rocks, at the trees, the birds, and take the time to just look and see the perfection.
Mm.
There's where I'm looking, there's some grasses that are alive and green and strong. There's one that's broken over and the light is shining on it and
Mm.
it's golden, and there's shadow play on it. When we can look and we can see that perfection all around us, and then come home and just like Rebecca said, see the people around you as trees and grasses and rocks.
Yeah.
Appreciate their perfection just as they're being right now. And this can make profound transformations in our life.
Yeah. Try it this week. Do some experimenting. When you get up in the morning, take a moment to just think, I'm enough.
Mm.
And really think that, feel that. Think, my value is just being here. And then see if you can take that into your day. My value is just being here. And then just be right here. And again, you will start to have a connection with others and with Divine Mother. She is all of this. She's you too. And in that way, you're already perfect. Divine Mother can't be imperfect. Trees can't really be imperfect. And we're just a part of that. We're just an extension of that. So we want you to know that you are enough. And we invite you to experiment and play with that concept and that feeling. And I think see if you can take a moment of stillness this week. And in that stillness, try to really do nothing and just notice what happens.
Please share with us in the comments if you try this and what you experience and just what this whole message brings up for you, makes you think of.
Yeah, we really look forward to hearing from you about it. It's a really, really essential concept.
Thank you for
Okay,
joining us.
I guess that's all for now.
All right. Love to you all.